an umbrella term that encompasses a lot of variety in how brains function. So some conditions typically considered under the neurodiversity bucket are dyspraxia, dyscalculia, dyslexia, autism, ADHD, Tourette's, and that doesn't completely cover it either.
So 29% of autistic adults are employed, but 77% of autistic people want to work. So there is quite a big gap there of autistic adults that aren't working, even though they want to. More than 60% of adults with ADHD said that they have lost or changed a job and attributed that job loss to ADHD symptoms as well. So there is challenges that come with being neurodivergent, difficulties with concentration, with focus, procrastination, varying energy levels, social interaction and communication, and a whole host of other things like spelling, reading, writing, arithmetic, organization, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, sometimes, like for me personally, I struggle sometimes with explaining things clearly. So it makes sense in my head, and for me to try and get it out to other people on the team, sometimes they have to come back to me and be like, "Okay, no, this doesn't make sense. Let's try that again." So yeah, that's definitely something that I struggle with. Yeah, but it's not necessarily a bad thing to have these issues, you know. There's definitely ways that we can overcome them, and by having the right accommodations in place for neurodivergent people in the workplace, you can make the most out of the unique strengths that neurodiverse people contribute to a company.
So we already know that diversity is something that businesses should strive for in order to perform more, and we see neurodiversity as an aspect of that diversity. So incorporating different ways of thinking can lead to a lot of creativity and innovation. Do you want to talk about other strengths?
Yeah. So one of the things, so specifically for, well, not specifically for just autistic people and people with ADHD, but a lot of neurodivergent people have high fixations. So if you can optimize your hiring practices for hiring neurodiverse people that are working in a field that they're really interested in, they have really intense focus, and yeah, that can really help to make them more productive, and yeah, just they're going to be giving 100% to what they do, just because it's how we operate. So like for me in my role, I really do love what I do. I love like the project management and like the organization and that kind of thing, and so I really get stuck in there with making sure that it's operating as it should be, and finding ways that to, rather than work hard, work smart, so rather than having a really complex way of working something, to make it work smoothly with minimal input, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's definitely something that's helped me a lot in my role at TestGorilla.
Yeah, and similar to hyperfixation, being able to go really deep on a subject matter, there's also, I think, the hyper focus and being able to sustain your attention on one thing for a long time, being systems oriented, finding ways to take like a more global perspective and figure out how pieces can be rearranged. Sheena and I have worked together, I think, extensively at this point on automations and how to think about ways that you could do work differently that don't necessarily require, I think, just to have like a consistent process. There's also, I think, yes, being able to think about things strategically, a similar thing to being process oriented, but thinking about how something might be received in different ways, and again, how that is the advantage of diversity and thinking about things differently.
Yeah, like especially so like problem solving and that kind of thing. I think because neurodivergent people generally have to overcome a lot of random problems in their everyday to day life. So we come up with ways that we can overcome that, and it's actually quite a really good transferable skill into the workplace, because we might be able to look at something in such a way that a neurotypical person might not look at it and see, okay, well, if we did it this way, this could actually work better. So yeah, like I said earlier, like the organization thing, it's something that I've struggled with a lot in my personal life, and I've found ways that I can overcome that at home, and same thing in my work as well. Something that a neurotypical person might not see straight away, that I've got an eye for that kind of thing. So a way of organizing things, and it's like I say with the project management, it really benefits me in that role.
I think what's challenging is that a lot of traditional hiring methods don't create opportunities for some of those unique strengths to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were talking about how the thriving chaos. Do you want to talk about your experience with?
Yeah, so it's definitely something that I've found. Like I said, I thrive in chaos. So I in my early 20s, I worked as a waitress, and I've also worked in like bartending and stuff like that. And people would always notice that when like the bar or the restaurant is really really busy, the other waiters or the bartenders are spinning and freaking out because they're like, I can't keep on top of everything, and I'm there totally calm. It's like, okay, cool, no, this table needs a new drink, and I need to go check because they've just finished eating. I need to go get their dessert menus and that kind of thing. So they're very like logical kind of thinking. It helps really well in those times where things are super busy and there's like so many things going on and having lots of things in the air. And like you might not think that would, waitressing and having that ability as a waitress would transfer into, working in a tech job essentially, but it really does. And with what I do, managing all the freelance writers that we have, the agencies that we work with, and the graphic designers and everything else, like I've constantly got a lot of things going on on my plate, and lots of things in the air. So definitely the thriving in chaos is something you might not be able to portray very, very well in an interview, but it's a really big benefit working in a job with things going on all the time.
Yeah, I think especially in a startup, to have, there are always so many things going on, and to be able to wear so many hats and understand just like different ways of approaching tasks, and how to structure your day, and there's a lot of day-to-day skills that are not, I think, easy to see in an interview, or on a resume necessarily. A lot of neurodivergent people have work experience that is, again, maybe not coherent, in the sense of it all makes sense when you read it in a list. Like there, I think, is a jumping around from different industries and opportunities, based on where you're able to find a good fit. But again, the coherence doesn't equal the capability.
There's not so much of that like linear career path as okay, like obviously some neurotypical people also don't have that, but like it's a bit more prevalent with neurodivergent people. And resumes obviously they don't always portray neurodiverse people in the best way, or enable you to show your real talent and those hidden talents that you can't really write on a resume.
When you apply to work at TestGorilla, the first step, which we recommend for people who are implementing our software, is the first step is the TestGorilla assessment. So it is not submitting the resume or having that the paper version of you. It's being able to demonstrate the skills right up front. And before you go to take the assessment, there is an option for you to request accommodations or to self-identify as having a condition that might impact your ability to take the assessment. And I remember seeing that and thinking that it was a really good sign that even if and I didn't request an accommodation because I didn't feel that the assessment, that my particular neurodivergence would affect my ability to take the assessment, but it does still show that there's an understanding and a commitment to being able to accommodate different ways of thinking.
Yeah, and like obviously having a skills-based hiring approach, it bases the value of a candidate on the skills that they can actually bring to the table, rather than how well they can, portray themselves on a piece of paper like a resume. And yeah, so by doing that, it levels the playing field for everyone, not just for neurodiverse people. But yeah, it really does help.
So we recommend structured interviews. So it's an opportunity for not just the interview to stay organized and to be giving everyone the same questions, but it really, I think, is a way to de-emphasize how personality can sometimes come across in an interview and carry someone through an interview to focus more on the answers to the questions.
Yeah, one of the other things we spoke about was like as you mentioned in the beginning, like neurodivergent people do have a tendency sometimes to go off on tangents when they're talking about something, especially if it's something that comes up that interests them. So having that structured interview in place, it helps you to bring it back to the point, when you've gone off on a tangent, even if you're talking for 5 minutes about something else, you can bring it back and go to the next question, rather than just getting lost and neither of you knowing what you're supposed to do next. Obviously, so these accommodations are beneficial for neurodivergent people, but they're also beneficial for neurotypical people for different reasons. So one of the big things for me is with working at TestGorilla is the ability to work remotely. And I can literally work from anywhere. So in my case, it's to work not from home. So I never found myself really working to my best productivity when I was working in an office, but I also found that when I was working at home, that also wasn't the best place for me. So I actually preferred to go work from like a coffee shop or from a social club or that kind of thing. So I think that also feeds into the thriving in chaos thing. There's sometimes I'll be working, people have pointed out to me that they don't understand how I can sit and be totally focused on my work when there's people running around me and loads of people talking and all that kind of thing. And yet for some reason, I'm just totally focused and I'm at my most productive in those environments. So yeah, having remote work and the ability to work from anywhere. Obviously, if I'm in a meeting, that's a different story. But yeah, having that ability to work in an environment that works for a neurodivergent employee and helps with their productivity is a major plus.
Being able to regulate your environment is a very important part, I think, to being productive. I think flexibility is the word that most captures what it is that we need more than anything else. So flexibility with the work environment, flexibility with the timing of when you're working and when you're most productive. Something that we have at TestGorilla, which I think is really a great accommodation, is unlimited PTO. So being able to, without question, take a mental health day when you feel that you're approaching a place of burnout, or even just to help get that balance. I think is an important accommodation.
Yeah, exactly. And even like the flexible hours and that kind of thing. So even if you don't feel like you need to take like a full day or whatever, if you're feeling a bit burnt out from, you've just finished working on a project and things have been a bit hectic, you can just take half an hour, that kind of thing, and just take that time so you can kind of reset, carry on later. Instead of like, if you're sitting in an office doing a standard 9 to 5, you don't really get that opportunity to have that break that you might need just to refresh and reset and then carry on with your work for the day.
When your brain might latch onto things in different ways.
Yeah.
If you are able to provide detailed instructions on the hiring process, like all of the steps from the point at which someone applies to when they might be hired, so that there is a sense of knowing what to expect. A lot of neurodivergent people will feel increased anxiety compared to their neurotypical peers when they're doing something new or unfamiliar, which is, I think, why Sheena and I were so excited for this webinar.
Yeah, definitely a lot of nerves involved.
Yeah. So the
So
more that you're able to be transparent, I think upfront, the better,
mhm.
or the more that it will help candidates feel empowered and aware of what to expect. Um, Something that I think that is really helpful in terms of incorporating like some of these other accommodations is also just to be able to share with your colleagues about
Yeah.
how you might have different considerations. So this, I think, something that really wears on neurodivergent people is having to mask some of the behaviors, and if
Mhm.
you are consistently masking, then you are leading yourself into a place that might cause burnout.
Mhm.
And so to be able to, I guess, let some of that go, and to trust that your colleagues will understand that, you
Yeah.
know, some differences in the way that you work
Mhm.
might be a part of your experience.
Yeah, and we wanted to talk about as well how imposter syndrome can emerge if the right accommodations aren't really put in place, or yeah, basically accommodations that you can implement to help avoid imposter syndrome. So yeah, one of the big things that I found that helps me with my imposter syndrome is fostering a culture of recognition. Um, because yeah, I find for myself personally and a lot of other neurodivergent people, we tend to rely more on outside validation. So even if I personally feel like I'm doing a good job, there might be things that make me start to feel like might start to doubt that, and then the imposter syndrome starts to creep in. So having like things that we do at TestGorilla, having kudos, having shout outs in our stand ups, or even just like having your manager send you a message and just say, hey, look, you know, you're doing a really good job with this. So yeah, having that culture of recognition where you put emphasis on the things that people are doing well, it really helps to kind of circumnavigate the imposter syndrome creeping in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. There's a lot of
Mhm.
messaging, I think, in culture that creates the imposter syndrome to begin with. So even just not, so even you know, coming into the workplace and feeling like there's some self-doubt or fear around your ability to contribute in a way that makes sense. You might not even be.
Mhm.
Um, it's not a surprise. I think that it comes or whenever anyone in a group that has been marginalized or historically believed to be less capable, it makes sense that this is a particular problem for anyone in the neurodiverse community.
Mhm.
Some of the challenges I think, talking about recognition, is this black and white thinking and perfectionism,
Yep.
feeling like even if you're, you know, hearing positive things, to hear one negative thing, it can be really challenging, I think, to not
Yep.
immediately go and think that everything that you're doing is wrong. So
Yeah.
something that I find helpful is whenever um, I am receiving feedback, I think it's helpful for me to hear after constructive feedback something positive, so that it can help to counteract the hyper
Yeah.
focus on the negative thing.
Mhm.
Um, and then
Yeah.
um, another way to combat imposter syndrome, I think, is to just be able to speak candidly with other people about it. I think
Yeah.
that this is something that exists for everyone on some level, um, and to be able to create a community where you can share openly about
Mhm.
how it emerges for you, I think does a lot in counteracting those feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. Like even myself and Clay before the webinar now, we were just talking about you know, about like the nerves and all that kind of thing, and just knowing that Clay was feeling just as nervous as I was, that definitely helped to kind of settle my nerves. Like, okay, it's not just me, like, you know, both of us are in the same boat. Yeah, it's nice to know that, you know, sometimes you're not alone in those feelings. So yeah, having the community of people that are in the same experience definitely is a big help too.
Yeah, I think something that I feel like I also ask for a lot is patience, because most of the time, if something isn't happening exactly when it's supposed to, it doesn't mean that it's completely disappeared from someone's backlog. It can be, I think, overwhelming to keep up with the pace sometimes, and so to know that your colleagues have an understanding that patience might be required at different levels at different times. I think I feel really supported when people acknowledge that it's okay that I am not always able to perform at the same level.
Yeah, that understanding, like you say, of like the different energy levels and stuff as well. I was just going to say as well, for like what we mentioned earlier about, sometimes things aren't always explained in a way that's clear to other people. So again, having that patience and being like, okay, let's try that again. Not quite understanding, and like sometimes repeating something back and be like, okay, have I understood this how you were trying to explain it? That really helps with me sometimes when I can see where I'm being unclear and where I need to be clearer in certain aspects and where I need to try and explain better.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Definitely feeling a lot more supported, and not feeling like me being neurodivergent is a bad thing. And yeah, definitely having that recognition of like the strengths that I bring to the table because I'm neurodivergent. And yeah, sometimes it's in the past it's not been seen as a good thing. Yeah, like we mentioned, like some of the things that we sometimes struggle with, like procrastination or like varying energy levels, that kind of thing. Yeah, in the past, employees I've seen that and seen that I'm not willing to work at this certain time or like that kind of thing. So yeah, having that environment and that culture of support and understanding, it makes a massive difference, and that's why it helps with my productivity and the work that I do at TestGorilla. It helps so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say something similar around just feeling embraced and acknowledging that the strengths are not the same, and for it to be appreciated for those strengths, and to not be expected to be a different person than who you are. I think that's been the biggest difference that I've seen. And I think that the flexibility with working hours for me is, I think, the game changer of feeling like I don't necessarily need to have a linear work day.
For myself as well, like yeah, obviously we have meetings and stuff like that, which is always at a set time, but outside of that, we can choose to set up our work day how we want. And yeah, in past experiences working in roles where I haven't had that freedom, it definitely makes a big impact on, when you're trying to like force yourself to work because you're still in your work day, but your energy levels are so low, or you're feeling burnt out because you've been masking the whole day. Yeah, you're not going to be productive in that environment. So yeah, having those kind of rules removed, yeah, it definitely allows you to work to your best. So like we spoke about earlier, like a lot of the things that are sometimes seen as weaknesses are actually strengths. So if you can highlight that, coming back to that thriving in chaos thing, it's not always something that you can portray so easily. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought now. But yeah, there is obviously a lot of benefit to having neurodivergent people in the workplace. So taking those strengths, like we said about like the hyper focus, the sustained attention, those kind of things. So figuring out what your strengths are that come from being a neurodivergent person, and yeah, you can essentially play that off against anything that you would potentially find to be detrimental or that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm again explaining that in a clear way, But yeah, so yeah, if you can take your strengths and yeah, show that it can be a benefit. Yeah, Clay, I don't know if you can try and phrase that in a way that the people might understand better.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how as a neurodiverse person, you would not want to
Mhm.
work for an employer that's not neuroinclusive. And so
Yeah,
my stance is, I think that, to be radically honest about where you are strong and where you struggle, it is in a way that it allows the employer to see that um, by including you on the team, you are getting a unique set of strengths that might not
yeah.
necessarily already, there might be a skill gap there on the rest of the team.
Mhm.
And so I think it is an advantage to have, um, as long as the employer sees it as an advantage, it is to be able to talk about how, your brain contributes differently.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Do you want me to read this
Let's
one?
see. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a question from Enrico. Are there any resources or training programs you recommend to increase awareness and understanding of neurodiversity in the workplace? It's a good question.
Yeah, I think that is
Hmm.
an important part of it too, in creating a neuro-inclusive environment. Everyone comes in with a different understanding and experience with neurodiversity.
Hmm.
So definitely agree that implementing some sort of training program or having resources available is a good thing.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of articles that
Hmm.
we've published on our blog that are a good starting place.
Yeah.
Um, and I know that there are a lot of organizations that are creating programs that can slot into different uh, um, programming. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any other specific names of things, but
Mm. Yeah, I don't have any
yes.
specific names that jump to mind, but yeah, as you said, we've got a couple of really great blogs on our website about this kind of thing. So it's a good place to start. Yeah. And then we have a question here from Matt as well. I often feel like the downsides of neurodiversity are just my problem. I need to learn to deal with it or be better or to learn to function like a normal person. Any tips on how I can address this with my team or manager?
Yeah,
Mm.
there is, I think, a lot of internal processing and learning to not see those things as your problem, or that that I think if it's not something that's being embraced, I mean, how else would you uh, approach
Hmm.
um, it within yourself?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Tips on how to address it. What do you think, Sheena?
Mm. Well, I think one of the things, so me personally, I'm quite open about being neurodivergent, but not a lot of neurodivergent people are.
Mhm.
So you you might find that you don't want to be open about it, but there might be other neurodivergent people on your team that totally understand the situation that you're in and where you're coming from. So yeah, I think it's also about kind of fostering that, like we said before, that kind of radical acceptance about neurodiversity. Um, and obviously with your manager as well, you never know, they might also be neurodivergent. So yeah, and yeah, I think definitely just being open about it as much as you can, just so that you can, yeah, like allow people to see in. So if they might be seeing something as a problem, and then if you explain to them like, look, it's because of this neurodivergence, then they can be more understanding about it and give you that grace and that patience and that understanding to actually allow you to, you know, to move past it essentially.
And if you're looking to take that next step on how to learn more about how to embrace neurodiversity, then these two articles are a good starting place.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is Neurodiversity Celebration Week. So again,
Mm-hmm.
we are trying to reframe as the superpower. This is, we should, the way that our brains work, is, it is,
Mhm.
it just is, and it should be embraced.